pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all.
You turn right back, you do 3 minutes to get.
So before we get going tonight, I'm sure a lot of you know, have seen that one of our previous mayors had recently passed away. So I would like us to take a moment of silence for Jerry. Thank you. So we do have a forum, however, Kathy is unable to be here, but accept a motion to use her absence tonight.
I'll move that we excuse her absence.
Second. Right, so it's been moved by Rebecca, seconded by Jamie, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Is there any other business that we need to add on to tonight's agenda?
Could you, I'm not familiar with the mayor that passed away, could you just kind of give us a little?
So Jerry actually lives in, he was here for 12 years prior to Mayor Dobosh. So he was here for quite some time. He actually lives in the big greenhouse up behind Betty's. It's been in the town a very long time.
They've been
Owns
council for a few
Betty's.
years too.
Yeah. Yeah,
The owner of Betty's.
Betty's place.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I know his health had been not doing great, but I thought he had rallied back a bit. I talked to him a couple of times in the last few months, but unfortunately, he did not.
Thank you.
So if we have no other business, I would accept a motion for approval of the consent agenda.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent agenda.
I'll second.
It was moved by Eric, seconded by Rebecca. Any discussion?
Just that you should note that Lions is spelled with an I, not a Y,
Where is it at? But it's
in the minutes.
Okay.
Oh, and also I don't think that we had something in there verbatim with the staff or one of the staff reports in verbatim, probably doesn't need to be in there.
Just
Because it's already in the packet and
Okay.
and we exposed that,
okay.
just to kind of keep it concise.
And so we will go ahead and make those changes. Other than that, we're good. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. So we will go ahead and move on to department reports. I know that Officer Carter is not currently here, he's out on a call, so we're gonna try and move his report down to the end of the meeting. Provided we can get up. Right. So with that, we will go ahead and move on to city call.
Okay, so I spent a lot of time doing public records requests this week. And last week, we implemented the first stages of LexiPoll. Taryn and I had a meeting with them, so we'll start going over how to get all of our policies in and updated and reviewed. I had a meeting with iWorks, which is a permitting company. I posted the chief of police and a lateral officer position just to kind of see what I could get. There just hasn't been a lot coming in. Civic Plus is moving forward with all of our codifying the city ordinances. I'm trying out a new time card application. We've currently been doing them on Excel sheets, which makes it kind of difficult to add everything up at the end of the month. So it's just something on your phone. You can just clock in, it GPS is your location. You can, request sick time, all that stuff. I was requested by CJIS to get them a report. So I've spent a lot of time working with Taryn on pulling together some cases and getting those over to the Criminal Justice Center. Carly's been still working with Visions on the UB2 training, and she's updating procedures and all the how-to guides. And we have resumed sending nuisance letters to homeowners. So anyone that has complaints about whatever going on, you guys can now either get them online, I believe. Our complaint forms are come in and fill them out, and we can move forward with sending those letters out. And that's it.
Any questions for City Hall? All right, perfect. So we'll move on to the public works report. So on their day-to-day operations, everything is running normal. No issues at this point that they are needing to address. They did do the Thursday market concrete project, and for some of you saw that going on, so, they evaluated the site as it had been marked out. They went and procured everything that was needed to cut the asphalt, worked with a company to bring in the concrete. They got that all poured and everything secured. They let it sit and cure. So that seems to go well. We did borrow, a piece of machinery, the auger from the school district. There was some issues with the auger that had some need for repair, so they did end up welding that up and getting it all back up and working order before they returned it back to the school district. They did have to troubleshoot a few pieces of equipment that had failures during the past few weeks. But they got those all taken care of now as well. They did get called out to the park for a busted water line and got that handled also. Otherwise, they're just, ordering parts for general maintenance and equipment. They are working on figuring out the best route to do preventative maintenance instead of reactive maintenance. And then they did get in contact with Fire Mountain Farms, which is who comes down to haul off our biosolids removal. So they will take care of all of that as well. They'll be up to this. Is there any questions for Public Works? All right, so we will move on to council reports. I have nothing to report at this time. On Derek.
Okay, I did a ride along with Sharon the day before last, couple 3 hours. That was good. He gets around. I see why we're buying a lot of gas. And then on the Thursday market post holes, I did some evening cleanup on the holes and the caps after the cement had set up enough, so that turned out, I think that turned out well. That's it.
Other than Wednesday is National Purple Heart Day, last year Randy Pennington gave us a nice presentation, so just a reminder, hang flag Wednesday. Otherwise, nothing to report.
I've got nothing.
Okay. All right, so we will go ahead and move on to committee reports. So Todd's going to speak on planning commission.
Thank you, Mayor DeBoer, members of council. I just wanted to give you an update. Chair Birch wasn't able to attend tonight, so since I'm here, I figured I'd jump in. The planning commission is working on zoning code as part of the 2025 comp plan update. So the first step of that, we reviewed some maps that the planning commissioners all took back, and they had kind of indicated some different areas of potential zoning and some discussion about what types of zones were good in different areas. It's been decided by planning commission that they will recommend that we have more than one residential zone, that we have that we separate the commercial and the industrial zones, so you don't have the employment zone that you have now. You have distinct zones, and then you have a mixed use zone. We also had some discussion this last month about zoning along the waterfront and what type of a mixed use zone might work there and where that might work and how it might fit, with the idea that the block between the water and the street as it runs down that way might be zoned some kind of mixed use. And then talking about the compatibility as that work back up into town, trying to avoid incompatibilities between intense commercial or residential uses and the existing downtown. That's what planning commission's working on. Coming up this month, we'll continue our discussion of zoning, talking more about the specifics of how it works and how it's implemented, and looking at some draft zoning codes. So making good progress.
Thank you. And I would like to encourage everyone that's here, anybody who's got any ideas, please come to planning commission. We need all the input we can get on the zoning. All right, so we'll move on to park board. Did somebody want to speak on park board?
Yeah, we don't have anything new, I think, since the last meeting. I think Cindy spoke for us, but it's just that after Board of Walk is going along, Stephanie is she's recruiting vendors for that. So that's happening the first part of September, and we'll keep you all posted.
Perfect, thank you. All right, so we do have a public hearing that we will be doing tonight. So that is actually Tom speaking.
You need to do a
So
date.
you, yeah, we'll
Yeah, time.
take the time again.
So we're gonna go to 6:10 in the public hearing.
Thank you again, Mayor, members of council. So the public hearing that we're having tonight is a long awaited one. If this is the final public hearing of the annexation. For the area that's north, it's over in the Toledo Hotel area. We've all worked on that for a couple of years now. It's been through a lot of different review processes. It's been through the state environmental review. It's been through planning commission. It was last at council. From the last council decision, we forwarded off the council decision to the boundary review board for Lewis County. During that review, the boundary review board received some comments that we were creating an irregular boundary because Toledo Vader Road would be surrounded on two sides by city. The city was annexing only the portion of Toledo Vader Road that was surrounded on both sides by the city limits. But we hadn't looked at how we were segregating a section of Toledo Vader Road by annexing this portion and this portion already being in the city. So for the portion of Toledo Vader Road between Plamondon and downtown, basically, a lot of that was still in the county, and they had commented that created an irregular boundary. Rather than have the boundary review board invoke jurisdiction, I brought back to council, and council agreed that it was acceptable to modify the boundary, so we did. And with that, the 45-day period at the boundary review board lapsed without any further comments, so they did not invoke jurisdiction. So the last step of the annexation process is here tonight for you all to consider. I'm happy to answer any more questions about the annexation that you might have. There's an ordinance attached to it. Certainly, I think the courses of action you could take on this tonight are staff is recommending approval. We've worked hard on this for the last couple of years, so I think it's something that has generally received support. But of course, you can always choose to deny the annexation, and if you do that, then no parts get annexed and we're done. Or you could remand it back to planning commission for more work. But again, staff's recommendation tonight is approval and acceptance of the annexation and approval of ordinance 805.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we will go
I have a question.
But you're open for, you're open for public comment.
I'm questioning his report.
Oh.
So it's either for you or it's for the mayor. What I'm wondering is if this annexation takes place, are we then going to produce a new city of Toledo map? So that people know where city of Toledo is.
I can answer that one, Mayor.
Yeah,
I am in contact
Yeah, we're
with
in
county
contact.
GIS. They've called a couple of times now wondering if it's been finalized. So once it'll become effective 5 days, assuming that you all adopt ordinance 805 tonight, it'll become effective 5 days later, and the county will update all their GIS maps. And at that time, we can produce new city limits maps with the new city limits on there and the applicable zoning for those properties.
I'm good.
Anybody else have any questions in regards?
We are open for public comment.
I just have a quick question, and this probably all the context out, Roxanne, for the record, need it. When we're talking about the annexation and you're going like from Betty's up the hill, are you talking the left side of the road or the right side?
Right over your head. In the salmon colored or the not quite red. See that?
Okay.
Upper left.
Yeah, number
Yeah.
11.
And then, does that change or will that change, the intended land use? Because I know there's couple pretty big lots of there, so click note version, I trust your work, I just, like, what's the kind of like upside for Toledo, what's the risk, like, or?
Do you wanna-
Sure. So an annexation does change the land use. It becomes, from, the city limits are thought of as urbanized property. So within the city limits, you're allowed to do housing at higher densities, you're allowed to do, different commercial industrial uses. Typically, the agricultural uses that happen out in the rural area outside of cities, are made to transition out over time. Once an area becomes urbanized, the idea is that it is going to get built out. So, so the zoning that will apply out there is the only residential zone that we have. It roughly matches that map up on the wall with the yellow being the residential and the pink being the employment zone. So it will change from what is now agricultural land in the county to employment land and housing land in the city limits.
Okay, is there any risk to the city or, those landowners for eminent domain or any sort of legal costs? Like, again, if you've already told us, I'm sorry, just.
There's not. There was a,
Everybody's good?
yeah, there was a near 100% desire, but the landowners actually brought the request for annexation to us.
Awesome, thanks. I'm just making sure, because we live on the other side of someday.
I swear it wasn't
making
Minlock.
That's a very good question.
And Boston is expensive, so I just wanted to make sure we consider that perspective.
I just wondered, will the city need to bring forth water and sewer then to these properties?
They will be paying for that. The land developers will be paying for that.
Any further comments? Okay, so we'll go ahead and close the public hearing at 6:16. With that, we will go ahead and do the reading for ordinance 805, which is an ordinance of the city of Toledo, Washington, annexing certain property to the city and establishing the zoning designations for such property. We are doing things a little different. Generally, our ordinances require 2 readings. However, the first and final readings are allowed if declared necessary by the mayor at one meeting, and due to our time crunch, we are gonna do the first and last reading tonight. Just to try and get everything through, and I think we have to be done by the end of this month, correct?
That's correct, Mayor.
Yeah.
It has to be filed with the state by September 1st in order to make the tax rolls for January 1st of next year.
Sure. So I would entertain a motion.
I would be happy to make a motion to approve ordinance 805 for annexation.
I'll second it.
All right, so it's been moved by Eric, seconded by Jamie. Do we have any further discussion?
I think it's okay that we're doing a single reading because this has been it's been through multiple public hearings and quite a few meetings over the last 2 years.
And any information can be found in the minutes
It's
of the one.
in the minutes, and all of our packets are online. You can see every bit of what we do.
Perfect. So all of those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll move on. So we do have the Southwest Washington Fair promotion in here for the special presentation.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, council members. Yes, we're here to promote the Southwest Washington Fair. The fair is coming up soon, and these lovely ladies are all representatives of the Southwest Washington Fair, so I'll allow you to introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about your fair experience.
All right, so my name is Caitlin Gunther, and I'm Miss Liz County. My community service initiative is actually agriculture literacy and educating on the importance of agriculture. And a reason why I think you guys should be at the fair this year is because I've actually raised and sold animals at our local Southwest Washington Fair for 11 years of my life. It was kind of like my summer home for, all those years. And I would just urge you to be in the barn with those kids and learn more about what they're doing with their animals, because they're more than welcome to share those things with you. And they're very passionate about what they do. They love what they do. They love their animals. And I don't know if there's anything else. Also, they love to talk about the skills that they learn through those projects, and they learn skills such as work ethic, responsibility, dependability, lots of life lessons and values that carry them into being successful individuals in the future. So I just think it's a great opportunity for all of you guys to be in the barn, and that's a little bit about me and why I think you should be at the fair. Hi everyone, my name is Riley Martin and I am the Lewis County Dairy Ambassador. I'm like Caitlin, I haven't had much experience with showing animals at the fair, but I have been there every year since I was a baby. And it is just a wonderful experience and we'd love for all of you to come to all the events, again, walk through the barn, talk to all the kids. It's like really a wonderful experience.
My name is Claire Hansen. I'm the oldest family logo of the fair. There's so many fun events at the fair, like the diaper derby and the bunny costumes and the pie contest. I was actually in the pie contest last year. But I didn't do it because I wanted to win. I did it for the pie.
Talk about your cookies.
Oh yeah, I made you guys some cookies and they taste exactly like the scones at the fair.
They look delicious. Thank you.
So we would like to invite all of you to come to the opening ceremonies. That will be at 11, right?
But
11
if you
o'clock.
get there earlier, then you can come in for free.
Right, and you should have received a card in the mail, and that's for parking and admission. And opening ceremonies, we'd love to have you all there. They recognize all the visiting communities and all the dignitaries that come, so it's an important part, it's a big part, and they'll all be there. And have any of you ever attended the fair before? Yeah, have any of you ever entered anything in the fair? All right.
I did, I actually spent 4 years showing dairy cows.
Oh,
So,
there you go.
You definitely do get the work ethic.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we appreciate you letting us come, and I believe you've all received the handout with the dates and things that are happening, so we just would love to have you all come. All of you are all welcome. Please come to the fair.
Thanks, thank
And
Thank you.
you came to our parade.
Yes.
You were in our parade.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
Yes, it was
I
fun.
remember.
I had a great time. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Right, so we will move on to public comment on the agenda items. All right.
Kyle Wheeler, can we give Todd a round of applause because that was a lot of work we've been over the last couple of years and just. I know how much that took for him, so thank you, Todd. I was disappointed in taking time to.
All right, so we will go ahead and move on to new business. So first up on the list is the Maple Street subdivision.
Hopefully I'm getting better at brevity of some of these. There's a complete staff report prepared for all of you on the Maple Street subdivision. This is a 7-lot subdivision containing 1 existing home to remain. And then the creation of 4 new single-family home lots and 2 other lots that are proposed to be used for duplex housing. This application has been a while in the process, not quite as long as the annexation. But this project was at the public hearing at the planning commission. And planning commission reviewed the materials, which are also included as attachments to the staff report. It's a pretty lengthy packet with all the information the applicant has submitted. And the planning commission, at the public hearing on July 17th, recommended to council that you approve the preliminary plat for the Maple Street subdivision. So, so this isn't without conditions of approval, and they still have more things to do before they can actually begin to build houses. So the conditions of approval are listed down below the planning commission recommendation. And then there were a few of the outstanding, there's a few items where the applicant, these were pretty minor in the grand scheme of things, but they just hadn't addressed them from the preliminary approval. So we're asking that before they finalize the plat, that they address those issues. With the conditions, it does meet all of our development standards for preliminary plat approval. The next step of the application process for them will be to submit final engineering documents, and that'll show things like the details on the stormwater. for preliminary plat approval, all they have to be able to show is that they could meet the standards. So they demonstrate to some degree of certainty that they can meet the standards with the final design. But this is not a final design approval. That final design will not come before council though, once you approve of planning commission's recommendation tonight. If you approve of planning commission's recommendation tonight, then the applicant then has to submit engineering drawings. They also have to submit a final survey for review showing all the specifics on how they're implementing all of these standards. They do have some water and sewer improvements to do. And then they also have some sidewalk improvements on 2 sides. They were proposing to delete sidewalks on other sides because they were either redundant or not necessary, and planning commission accepted the SEPA mitigation. So when staff reviewed that, we thought, well, you know, sidewalks are for pedestrian safety. Is pedestrian safety a concern in this block? When we looked at that, we did talk to the police chief, and the police chief indicated that, well, it is a concern for us always, but what we really need is better enforcement. And the enforcement tool that was missing was a radar unit. So what we did was we allowed them, staff recommended, or staff conditioned them through the SEPA review process to provide the city with a radar unit for police use, or the funding for the radar unit for police use, so that the city could increase enforcement in these areas and provide mitigation for pedestrian safety that offsets the deletion of the sidewalks. The planning commission is recommending approval tonight. This isn't the public hearing for land use applications. There's only one of them, and that happened at the planning commission. So unless you'd like to take public comments, which are always welcome to do at your discretion, there's no public hearing required tonight, which is why this doesn't appear on the public hearing agenda. The actions that council could take basically with this, you could accept the planning commission recommendation and allow the applicant to move on to final engineering design and demonstrate compliance with the regulations. You could deny the application. You could not go with planning commission's recommendation, and you could say, no, we don't want to do this, and that would end it. Or you can remand it back to planning commission for further consideration if you have some specific concerns that you feel like haven't been considered in the planning commission findings. So with that, I conclude my staff report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Okay, on this, we've already granted them a variance for the 0.65 acre. And then in there was a 5% land requirement for recreational or keeping it clear. And then I'm reading this and I'd like clarification, because it sounds like they're saying, well, there's Camp Olson Park right across from there, so they're trying to substitute that for the 5%. So I'd like clarification. Is that what's being done?
That is accurate. So the variance that council allowed was, you've got a standard in your code that for lots that are 1 acre and larger, they're allowed to do different development, higher density standards that allow them to achieve, in this case, the duplex lots. You know, downtown, you're allowed to do the 6,000 square foot lots on their own. But in this case, they're proposing smaller lot sizes and other things that weren't supported in the standard regulations. So they needed to apply the special consideration that was in the cluster lot subdivision section. And in the code, it said that's only allowed for lots that are 1 acre and larger. So what council approved was the reduction of that 1 acre to 6/10 of an acre so that this project could use those standards. Included in those standards, so the cluster is usually made to deal with environmental constraints. So when you have wetlands or undevelopable area, then you can transfer the density from one point to another. Or the other piece of that is for recreational area. So part of your cluster ordinance does require the 5% be set aside for recreational space. In this case, because the area is only 6/10 of an acre, the applicant suggested that the park was right across the street and there was already adequate recreation. So for them to provide recreational space or set aside on their property would actually decrease the density and provide less housing, which is true. And then also, it would be kind of redundant, and the percentage of 6/10 of an acre wouldn't really be significant. So therefore, they said, well, in this case, we're right across the street from a park. So those were things that they had presented at the time they presented the variance to council. Council allowed the variance. Staff supported the concept of using the park, and I agree that having that percentage of a 6/10 of an acre lot wouldn't really provide for a significant piece. So
This is like up at Cal's Meadows where we're talking about a much larger plot. That percentage is creating a pocket, what are we calling it, a pocket park. So, where we have there's a piece up there, but it didn't scale down very well.
Well, the reason I'm asking for a clarification is because you're reading through this and you're seeing, oh, we're setting aside 5%. And then you get down here and you go, well, not really, because Camp Olson Park is over there. So to me, it's very deceptive. And that's why I asked for a clarification.
So it is, I mean, that's a requirement that this project does not meet. In order to use those standards, we would have to find that there's adequate recreation in the vicinity, or that this isn't needed. And that was what staff found in the recommendation to Planning Commission. So that is true. In that case, in order to use those provisions as they would normally be applied, and as they have been applied in other subdivisions here, that 5% would be a required set aside. But in this case, it didn't seem significant, and their proximity to the park seemed like it would provide the same function. So, but you're absolutely correct, that is inconsistent in the standards. But we do have findings, and that was presented as part of the project. I mean, it's been discussed, and it is included in the staff report.
Okay, well, like I said, to me, it was deceptive because I'm reading along and I see there's this 5%, 5%, 5%, and then all of a sudden well, no, we're not really gonna have 5%.
You don't, and in this case, for the 6/10 of an acre, that would be maybe about, it's about 1,000 square feet.
Never did math in public.
So.
Sorry. Planners. I'll be the first to admit that planner math is not good with me, so you please do check my math on that, but I think it's about 1,000 square feet.
So my concern then is, if we make this exception, are we setting a precedent? Are we gonna?
But it wasn't that was understood and included in the variance that we already granted.
It was, and the staff report for that discussed that at length, and what we tried to do in that was to make sure that this didn't set a very big precedent, because they're right across the street from a park, because they are less than the full acre in size. So really, in order for somebody to apply this in the same way again, they would have to have another variance approved by council to get down to the 6/10.
Yeah.
They would have to be adjacent to a park. That is the precedent you're setting with this, is that it's a precedent not for the elimination of the 5% generally, but in this case, it was very specific that it fit this case for those reasons. And
That lot is kind of a unicorn.
Yeah.
I mean, it's small, it's oddly shaped, and it is right next to the park.
Okay, and other than my disagreement over HOAs, I guess I'm fine.
I know, I don't like them either.
so in this
Not
case,
like 'em.
that's another standard, and certainly you can modify the planning commission conditions, but in this case, they're proposing the HOA is needed for the cluster subdivisions, usually to help to maintain the open space. But in this case, we don't have open space, so the need isn't as strong here, but that condition wasn't ever waived through the process. So the condition that staff put in the that we put in the staff report for planning commission included the requirement for that. In talking to the consulting engineer, they will have to, they're proposing to do stormwater facility in the backyard of these to help the stormwater for treatment and detention. And that crosses over property lines, and those do require maintenance. So the HOA could be addressed through a covenant that's signed by all the property owners for their, if you disagree with the HOA. The reason the HOA is in there is because it's a requirement of the cluster. And the reason it's a requirement of the cluster is actually to take care of the open space, which isn't required for this one.
We should get
So,
a motion so we can start
if-
talking.
So if you'd like, you could modify the planning commission conditions to delete the requirement for the HOA and instead require a covenant with the stormwater facility that requires mutual maintenance as acceptable to the city reviewing engineer.
Let's get ourselves a motion so we can start talking this over.
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept the. What are we calling it? Subdivision, Maple Street subdivision.
I'll second that.
Alright, so it's been moved by Rebecca, seconded by Eric, and further discussion.
What about that HOA? I don't like HOAs either.
Yeah.
They
I'm
turn
not a
into
big
nightmares
fan.
easy. So what are, good,
I thought I did read somewhere though that in this case it was specifically for the stormwater.
but once you have an HOA, as Todd I said the same thing, Todd says, once you have an HOA, they can decide to do anything. You get 3 of those houses that decide they want all the house doors all have to be purple and you can't, you can't decorate for Christmas and.
So you're saying we could do it, that require them to do a covenant instead of an HOA?
That would be another solution that would address the maintenance of the stormwater facility, and it's more commonly used than requiring an HOA.
So can you tell us more about the covenant? What is that? What are the logistics of that?
The covenant, instead of establishing an HOA, the covenant is just it creates an agreement. It's similar to an easement over an area, but the covenant also has standards for maintenance, for who pays for what and how it all works.
So if somebody comes in and buys that piece of property, they sign, as part of the sale, they sign on to the covenant.
Right, that would get recorded with the land, and then that covenant would require all those property owners that are a party to that. And the way that we make it so that you can't get rid of those things is we usually make the public part of the covenant, so that they're covenanting that they're gonna maintain these for stormwater, but because stormwater has an impact on all the neighbors, and you wouldn't want those property owners just to get together as they would in an HOA. So they covenant not only to each other for the mutual maintenance of and preservation of that area for use as a stormwater facility, but they also include the public in there as well. So that way it can take the signature of the public. And that's hard to do.
I like that a lot better.
And so do we amend
We have
this?
some knowledge here.
I want to play devil's advocate here because it all sounds great and some people don't agree. Even a covenant needs enforcement and management. So how in the absence of an HOA, even if it isn't paid into, what happens when those homes are vacant? Become rentals with people who don't manage the stormwater? What is the risk about fencing? Because if we're talking about a big hole with water and an open space across from the park, kids could get in, could get hurt. Like, I hear that it sounds great, and it is great when everybody's friends. But when we're not, that just sounds like like an exceptional amount of risk to not have the HOA. I hate HOAs too, but there are very limited purposes where they actually add good. And in this case, I think there's potentially greater public risk by sidestepping HOA.
Actually, it sounds like we have less control with an HOA. I like the fact that the city is involved with it.
But they're not, or are they? I guess is my question. Like, does the covenant exist with cities oversight?
That's what he said.
Can I give you a public comment? I have
You have
your
knowledge?
specific knowledge here.
If you have specific
I
knowledge, that'd
happen
be great.
to have owned a stormwater parcel up in Chehalis for the last couple of years. It was previously under sorry for traumatizing you with that information.
I remember that project.
Yeah, it happened to have previously been with an HOA. It also had a separate CC and honor to cover the stormwater maintenance. when the HOA was disbanded and gone, and I picked up the parcel, the way that they were able to still maintain it is through the CCR. My property had a CCR with the county, and the agreement was that if the property owner did not maintain it, the county had the right to go through and do it. So the city could theoretically do the same thing, where you guys just do a CCR with everybody. And then if it comes down to it, you have the option of enforcing your contract with all of the property owners and then billing them for it after. Or it's just like, we give you notice, we say, hey, you guys aren't maintaining this, you have 60 days to do it, otherwise we're gonna come in and do it and send you the bill. And so I just know from my personal perspective, with the HOA having been disbanded, the CCNR was their backup.
Thank you.
Sorry, I just had very weird specific.
I knew you were saying.
Like,
Yeah, they would amend the motion to modify the.
Yeah.
HOA to occur.
I'd like to amend the motion to approve the Maple Street subdivision with the modification of dropping the HOA and making a covenant for the stormwater usage repair,
Which includes the city,
which includes the city.
and I'll second that.
I'll third it.
The amendment motion
Thank you, Jamie, that
It's
was,
been moved by Rebecca, seconded by Eric. Do we have any further discussion before we call the vote?
Can I ask a question? Is there any provision, since they are getting a waiver to not get backyard, the park is going to be their actual backyard? Is the city getting any funding from them?
they have backyards, the thing that was eliminated was a public park on the property.
I have a similar question, though, in that, is the city preparing for the influx of daily use into this park of however many residents are going to be there, making sure that it's adequate for the number of people?
Are they getting any fee or anything towards the new playground equipment or increase or anything?
Seems like it would be increased cost to the city
Yeah.
without an offset, because we can have multiple daily use of the park, maybe people live right next.
Were there any impact fees involved?
But however, we also have, they're also right across the street from the elementary school as well, which has open playground. So there's,
No, that's closed after hours and locked, and on the summertime, that's also locked. They don't want kids in there when there's no one there.
then they should do a way better job of locking it because they see it open every single day.
And it is a public park,
My
right?
kids go to the elementary school and it's
Yeah.
open,
All the time.
it's open all the time, there's no walking.
And it's not even gated on the one side by the little early.
But
learning
baseball
building.
fields, there's not even, you
Yeah.
can just walk right, you can drive in there, there's no gate fence or anything.
Yeah. So, but that is another option for us.
That's the original question.
I said, well, what did I say?
Or
I
extract your-
said it's a public park, correct? So the public should be able to use it. And if they build 7 places on that acreage, then those 7 places can use the public park.
And similarly, when Cowlitz Meadows goes in, the residents here in Old Toledo can take a walk up to the pocket park up there and play in that park if they want. It's a city park.
So we'll go ahead and call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. On to the,
Before we go on to, is somebody gonna notify somebody that we made an adjustment to this?
I'll take care of
I
it.
just, yeah,
Yep.
Kurt's already called me twice today. I'll call him back.
I'll notify the applicant.
I'll talk to him.
Working with your city staff, so we make sure they're aware that that condition goes.
Yeah.
all right, so on to the next order of business, the iWork system demonstration.
Did you put all the papers in here, Carly? Yeah. I don't know where it is. So, with us doing permits, I feel like we need to get some kind of platform, there is a lot of them, I found iWorks, it literally puts the GIS, all of our permits in one platform. I can send them to our inspector who can review the plans. He can go in there, mark them up, send them back to me. I can request all my inspections through this platform. All of our, each permit will have its own documents they can fill out through there. It basically streamlines the permitting system. We don't have a lot going on right now, but we will soon, and I think it's important that we start looking at something. If not, you guys are gonna need to hire someone to just do permitting at that point. Cause there's no way Carly and I are gonna be able to take on Cowlitz Meadows without some kind of platform.
With that said, I would like to make a motion that we table this until we have forward movement with Cowlitz Meadow. Because that's my motion. We can talk about it. That we postpone iWorks until we have, until a future date.
I'll second it.
Has been moved by Eric, seconded by Jamie to table until a later date when Cowlitz Meadows is beginning. Any further discussion?
Yes. In doing this, and I like more information on iWorks, but in doing this, is it going to produce our documents that we need?
Yes, I would work with them to put all of our documents in there. They would tailor it strictly to Toledo. Todd would have a login, I would have a login, you know, office staff would have a login, Robert would have a login. And I could just go in there and literally say, you know, call for inspection, rather than have to pull up my Excel sheet, go into Trello, figure out what needs an inspection. Right now, I hand make inspection cards based off of the permit. This would all be preset templates in there. So right now, again, we're using Robert, we're paying Robert when I send him over stuff and I'm like, okay, this is the permit. I don't know what all needs to be inspected. This system would set that all up for us. So if we were
That's not gonna
doing,
tell you what needs to be inspected.
it will, based off of the information that's put in there. So if it's a brand new home, it's gonna need electrical, it's gonna need LNI, it's gonna need all of that stuff. We'd have to go in and tailor some of it, but the basics is there, the framing, the insulation. We can wait, but I think if we wait until they start throwing in permits, I think we're gonna be chasing our tail. I can't tell you if your house ever had a permit. I'd have to go back there and look by, it what?
This is not gonna fix that. We
Okay.
talked about, I mean, right?
It does, though. It's not gonna
But
fix
it's not
the
going to,
back
it's,
stuff, but it's gonna,
once you
going
do
forward-
500 hours worth of work to put all.
Well, I'm
the
not
history
gonna put all of
into it.
those in, but I'm saying going forward, I think if we're gonna take on permits, we need to do it right.
I'm
and
very,
not-
very much a fan for this when Cowlitz Meadows is closer. They still have streets to tear up, water sewer to put in, ground to move, pavement and sidewalks to put in. We'll know well in advance. So, and it's a $10,000 commitment, $4,500 today and $2,500 a year. If they never break ground, we're still spending 10 grand. For at that point, nothing. For
Okay.
the learning exercise for as few permits as we're putting through.
I'm wondering, because I know you said it'll, like, it checks everything for us, does that include, like, with all of our buildings and stuff? Will it pull from
Yeah,
that?
it'll pull, we put all of
Okay.
that in there.
Additionally, who's looking at the plans?
Robert. And so right now I send him the plans and then he'll send me back an email with notes. Sometimes Todd will, look at them before they go to Robert. And then I've got to put them back or, you know, get notes to whoever's filling out the permit. They make the changes and then I got to send it back to Robert and we pay for another plan review from him.
Okay, so if they're doing all this online, is that process still gonna be the same?
Yeah, so they would submit the permit once it's counter complete. It would go over to Robert and he would be able to pull it up and he could do all of his markings on the permit in the platform. And then if it was approved, it would get emailed straight back to the person that it's approved. We could invoice them through the system. I mean, there's still gonna be the process of, you know, hopefully we'd be able to cut Todd out, like, hey, is this counter complete? We're getting to the point where we can kind of see what's needed. He's just kind of been the buffer for us, so we're not sending Robert things and paying for Robert to review things that aren't complete. So eventually Todd's process won't be there, but Robert's always will, since he's the inspector, he's gonna review all of our plans.
And Robert is a pass-through, correct?
Yes, yeah, we charge a percentage based off of the permit cost. To the customer, and then Robert charges us, I think it's either 55 or 65 for a plan review.
And will this expedite the process, like, if it's all online and easily?
I think it, yeah, definitely, I mean, it's gonna expedite all of it for everybody.
Jamie, when I started making the push for us to do our own permitting. Part of an important factor of that is that we don't create a fixed cost that's gonna weigh us while we're not having houses. So,
Mhm.
you know, the worst thing that could happen would be we pay for this and they don't break ground because I don't know what. Because
Because there's a
it's not, it doesn't, yeah, it doesn't work out. And so we eat 3 years worth of paying for this service that we don't need. There is a spin up time, there's a learning time. There is a point where it will help you a lot. But I think to do that now and get your training now and then have a handful of permits over the next 2 years while we're waiting for, or a year and a half, a year if we're lucky on Cowlitz Meadows, probably a year and a half since they haven't broken ground yet and fall's coming.
It'll be a year.
Yeah, so I mean, to me, it sounds like we're wasting at least $5,000, if not 7,500.
So can I make a suggestion is maybe put it on a council agenda in 6 months?
That's what I was
To revisit.
Absolutely. I'll look into it more and I'd like to look into your
I'll follow
process
through.
more and I'd be happy to see what we can do, because we do have technology. I mean, we've got PDF forms, we've got a website, webmaster that can generate that auto email, those web forms, you know, when they come in. So I think that some of that can just happen with natural technology that's.
And we do all that
That's
now, we're
good.
using the PDF forms, they're doing the
Okay.
electronic signatures, I'm using templates and all that, but to have everything in there and just be like, okay, they're. Doing an ADU and they just click ADU and everything that they need pops up. Rather than we have to go through and then train Carly on it. And her knowing what she's looking at, it's all in the system for her. So we'll visit it in 6 months.
Okay.
Do you want to choose those in the same 6 months or to table it until?
We'll just throw it back on.
Okay, perfect.
You throw it on there anytime you think it's relevant. Then.
All right, so the iWorks has been tabled until around the February. Last order of business is the Renee Cabral water leak reduction request.
Yeah. So this bill was from March and April. His consumption was 163,730, which is pretty significant. He did end up paying what his typical bill usually is, which is $170. He paid that on May 14th. So there's an invoice that was in the packet. I'm not sure if you're looking at it right now. So we would need to adjust just his bill to make it zero, $440. Just to make it even up.
I do have a question. So how is the bill generally 170?
He's water only.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
And he did have a leak and it's been repaired, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
He's the
And there's the
invoices
invoices
in there.
for it.
entertain motion.
I'll make a motion that we accept the water leak request. And adjust the invoice. Minus the 170 he's already paid.
I'll second that.
Could we, before we do like we did the last time we did this, could we clarify exactly what we are doing? Dollar amounts.
His bill, so that way it's just an
$540.
your credit and
Correct.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, did we need to amend?
Yeah, just to make sure.
The Public Works hasn't
They just-
inspected it yet.
Yeah, if you wanna,
So I'll amend to say wait, who made that? You want
Oh,
to amend it?
okay, I amend my motion to accept the water leak request based on Public Works approval.
And I'll resend that.
Right, the amended motion was made by Rebecca, seconded by Eric. Any further questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries.
That's a lot.
All right, so we will move on now. Don't currently have any unfinished business. We do need to figure out what we, our topic needs to be for our, August 19th workshop.
we should start doing budget stuff. I was gonna send out emails to PD and Public Works this week to start getting their budget requests in, so we can start talking budget.
Great.
And where are we on water?
I was
rates?
just about to
Oh,
ask that too.
thank you.
Yep, because I know we talked about,
Because we had a deadline on that too.
yeah, so do we want to do
I
budget?
think that we got to the point on water rates where we were ready for a public hearing to get
Okay.
scheduled.
Rachel still needs to follow up with MRSC on the qualifications for the reduced rate.
You want to do budget and water discussion at the next one?
Yeah.
If
Budget,
it's needed.
Yeah,
okay,
I know the clock's ticking on the water rate change.
yes.
I think that we.
And
have a public
it
hearing.
has to be in place before we do budget anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll do, you've got the water rate and budget all in one.
good plan, sure.
And since you did get Officer Carter back, you want to go ahead and do your report?
Sure. So, some of the highlights from this month, so we had 4th of July festival that went off great, so. Great job with fireworks, we didn't have any major issues, anything like that, the turnout was phenomenal with that. Same thing with cheese days, I think some of this I might already briefed, but. That also went really well, I think we only had one minor issue and that was handled pretty quick and. Security teams that were out there were phenomenal with the businesses, that they were doing a great job of policing up their own issues and. I'd also like to put out a thank you to Winlock PD that, they were pretty critical that helping us out with the extra presence, so helping us out with foot patrols, presence patrols, and some traffic enforcement as well, so, everything went well there. We had a funeral procession that we assisted with, so we just closed down on the second, allowed them to go through, so that way we could keep the group together. They were thankful for that. And then some of the upcoming focuses, so right now we're in the process of implementing Lexipol. So going through with their company, making sure that we're getting our procedures and stuff put in place, getting all that. Fix that, it's gonna be a couple months before we get to the point that it's fully up and running. Some of the policies that we'll review will more likely will be coming to council to just get some of that final approval, just make sure we're good there and the liability purposes, to make sure we're cognizant of that. We're working on hiring a new officer. We haven't had a lot of luck with that so far, so the candidates that we've been getting through are not what we're looking for, so. As we go through that, we're looking at some different ways that we can kind of implement maybe better systems or better. Appeal to get a good officer to come into the city here. And then if that does not pan out, then at a later time, we may have to revisit an entry level position, but we're not at that point yet. And then as far as right now, we're also going through a lot of case reviews, so we're finding a lot of cases that were not completed correctly. So far, we're at about 19 cases that we're actively going through and trying to fix. One of the things with that is we're reaching out to the public that if there has been cases here with it recently that you feel that were not handled correctly, or if you would like us to review that, we are reviewing that on a case by case basis. So let us know so we can make sure that we can get those issues addressed. And that's about it for it. We understand it's been a very difficult month. that occurs and we get sued based on our policy. They have liability on that. They also make sure it's legally sound. Because I'm sure everyone here is aware, Washington State, a lot of changes, it seems like daily. So trying to keep up with that we have a team that's actively reviewing that, making sure that policy is legally sound, that we're following it, and then we also can make sure that officers are tracking that by setting deadlines and stuff, make sure that everything's acknowledged and that we're following compliance with that. And that's huge for us because it does a lot of that liability and it gives us a clear left and right for the officers on the ground.
Can I add a little bit to that as well?
But
We also cover procedures, so I'll use a very small example, if we lose, let's say, we lose a gas card. And the policy is already written in what goes on the gas card, there's a procedure that follows that policy. So as soon as it's written off on, there's a procedure that they can actually follow that matches to that policy. And therefore, you know, if it comes to audit, everything's audited through there, and everything stuff.
Good point.
Any further
I'm a
questions?
big fan.
Me too.
All right, so we will move on to our public input.
Joe, you had something right as we were voting. No, okay.
Pass,
Okay,
so.
All right, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion we adjourn.
That's second.
If the moves are seconded, all those in favor?
Alright.
Opposed? Adjourned.